Part 5. The New Order, the Fury of Earth, was not like the Hope of Earth. The first human ship to visit the Council had been small and simple. This ship was a monster. It was 3 kilometers long, covered in weapons, surrounded by a fleet of 100 warships. When it arrived at the Council station, every alarm in the station went off. Admiral Tay, the second, stood at the front window and watched the station grow closer. He was 50 years old, the grandson of the original Admiral Tay, who had died long ago. He had his grandfather's eyes, sharp and cold, and he carried his grandfather's anger, passed down through generations. "Grandfather," he whispered to himself, "I am here. I kept our promise." Behind him stood the human delegation. Commander Jin was there, now old and gray, but still strong. Captain Mina was there, promoted to admiral after her service in the Vorak War. And Ambassador Yuna was there, carried in a special chair because her body could no longer walk. She was 140 years old, and everyone knew these would be her final days. The docking was different this time. There were no guards pointing at hallways. Instead, Council officials waited in lines, bowing as the humans passed. The same species that had laughed 60 years ago now lowered their heads in respect. Or perhaps in fear. The walk to the Council chamber was silent. Admiral Tay remembered his grandfather's stories about the first visit. The whispers, the mockery, the creature that had sniffed Ambassador Yuna and called her soft. That creature's species had surrendered to humanity 2 years ago. They now served human colonies as workers. The doors to the Council chamber opened. Admiral Tay stepped inside and stopped. The chamber was empty, not empty of furniture or light. Empty of people. Every seat that had once held a representative was vacant. The circles of chairs rose up around the central platform, but no one sat in them. The only movement came from the top of the chamber, where the 5 elder races usually sat. Only one elder remained. The chief elder, the creature of light and shadow, floated in its ancient seat. It looked smaller than Admiral Tay had imagined, weaker. He walked to the central platform. His footsteps echoed in the silence. When he reached the center, he looked up at the chief elder and waited. "You came," the elder said. Its voice was tired. "We came," Admiral Tay replied. "The other elders have departed. Some fled to distant galaxies. Some simply ended their existence. They could not accept what has happened. What humanity has become." Admiral Tay said nothing. 60 years ago," the elder continued, "your people stood where you stand now. They asked to join us as equals. We refused. We laughed. We sent them away like children who had wandered into a room where they did not belong." "I know the story," Admiral Tay said. "Every human knows it." "Yes, you made sure of that. You turned our rejection into fuel, our laughter into motivation, our contempt into your greatest strength." The elder's form flickered. "In all my millions of years, I have never seen a species transform so completely, so quickly. You should not exist. What you have done should not be possible. And yet here we are. Here you are." The elder was silent for a moment. "What do you want? You have already won. The Council is broken. The military powers have surrendered. Every species in the galaxy fears you. What more can you take?" Admiral Tay looked back at his delegation. Ambassador Yuna sat in her chair, her eyes bright despite her aged body. She gave him a small nod. He turned back to the elder. "We do not want to take anything. We want to give." The elder's form shifted, confused. "Give? When my grandfather came here, he wanted partnership. He wanted to share what humanity had to offer. Our art, our science, our dreams. You rejected him. You rejected us. And so we built everything ourselves. We became strong because you forced us to. But strength alone is not enough. War is not enough. Conquest is not enough. We have learned that. The Varak learned it. The entire galaxy has learned it. Admiral Tay stepped forward. Humanity offers the galaxy a new beginning. Not as masters and servants. Not as conquerors and conquered. But as partners. True partners. We will share our technology. We will share our knowledge. We will help rebuild what has been destroyed. But in return, we ask for one thing. What thing? That no species ever be treated the way we were treated. That no young race ever be laughed at and sent away. That the galaxy move forward together, not with some species above and others below. The elder was silent for a long time. Finally it said, "You could rule this galaxy. You could crush every species that ever wronged you. Why do you not?" Admiral Tay thought about the question. He thought about his grandfather, who had died dreaming of this moment. He thought about Ambassador Yuna, who had carried her anger for over a century. He thought about all the humans who had worked and fought and died to bring their species to this point. Because revenge is not victory, he said. Our grandfather wanted humanity to be respected. Not feared. Respected. Fear is easy. Respect is hard. We choose the hard path. He reached into his coat and pulled out an old piece of paper. It was worn and yellow with age. He unfolded it carefully. This is the original document my grandfather brought to the council 60 years ago. It was our offer of friendship. Our proposal for partnership. Every species rejected it without even reading it. He held it up so the elder could see. Today, I offer it again. The same words. The same hopes. The same dreams. The only thing that has changed is that now, you have no choice but to listen. The elder's form reached out and took the paper. It read for a long moment. This is remarkable, it said. Generous. Perhaps too generous. That is who we are, Admiral Tay replied. That is who we have always been. You just never bothered to see it. Ambassador Yuna's voice cut through the chamber. It was weak, but every word was clear. I have waited 60 years for this moment. I watched them laugh at us. I swore I would see them bow. And I did. But now I understand that bowing is not enough. Understanding is enough. Change is enough. She looked at the elder. Do not bow to us. Stand with us. Learn with us. Grow with us. That is all we ever wanted. The elder descended from its seat. For the first time in recorded history, it stood at the same level as another species. It stood next to Admiral Tay and looked at the empty chamber around them. The council is yours, it said. What will you do with it? Admiral Tay smiled. Not the cold smile of victory, but the warm smile of hope. We will fill it again, he said, with every species in the galaxy. And this time, we will do it right. Outside the council station, the human fleet waited. Inside, a new era was being born. The galaxy that had ignored humanity would now learn from it. The species that had laughed would now listen. And somewhere, in a place beyond understanding, the spirit of the old Admiral Tay watched his grandson stand where he had once stood. He watched his dream become reality. Humanity had been ignored. Humanity had been mocked. Humanity had been rejected. And humanity had risen above it all, not through hatred, not through revenge, but through hope. That was the human way. That had always been the human way. And now, the galaxy would never forget it. Part 4. The Reckoning. The Varak homeworld was called Varax. It was a planet of red deserts and black mountains. 12 billion Vorak lived there. They had built great cities of stone and metal. They had conquered dozens of worlds. They believed they were among the strongest species in the galaxy. They were wrong. Captain Mina stood on the bridge of the Silent Thunder and watched the planet grow larger on her screen. She was 32 years old, one of the youngest captains in the human fleet. Her grandmother had been on the Hope of Earth when humanity was rejected by the Council. Her mother had worked in the shipyards building the weapons that would one day be used. And now Mina was here, leading the attack that would change everything. "Captain," her first officer said, "the Varak defense fleet is moving to intercept us." Mina looked at the tactical display. 200 Varak warships were forming a wall between her fleet and their planet. They were big ships, covered in weapons. To any other species, they would have been terrifying. "How long until engagement range?" she asked. 4 minutes. Mina nodded. "Signal the fleet." Standard attack pattern. No mercy. The battle began at exactly noon Earth time. Commander Jin had insisted on that. He wanted it recorded. He wanted history to remember the exact moment. The Varak fought hard. They were warriors. They did not know how to surrender. Their ships fired everything they had at the human fleet. Missiles, energy beams, even physical projectiles. The space between the fleets filled with fire. None of it worked. Human shields absorbed every attack. Human weapons cut through Varak armor like it was cloth. In the first 10 minutes, 50 Varak ships were destroyed. In the next 10 minutes, another 50 fell. By the end of the first hour, the Varak defense fleet was gone. On the planet below, Varak leaders watched their fleet die. They sent desperate messages to the Council, begging for help. The Council did not respond. The elder races were already calculating the odds. They did not want to fight a species that could destroy a fleet so easily. "Commander." Jin brought his ship into orbit above the Varak capital city. 20 million people lived there. He could see them through his screens, tiny figures running through the streets. He could have destroyed the city with a single shot, but Jin was not a monster. He was a soldier. "Open a communication channel," he said. "Let them hear me." His voice went out across the planet, broadcast on every frequency. "People of Varax, your fleet is destroyed. Your defenses are gone. You attacked our colonies. You killed our people. You did this because you believed we were weak. You were wrong." He paused. On the planet below, everything had stopped. Everyone was listening. "I could destroy your cities," Jin continued. "I could burn your world to ash. I could do to you what you did to New Dawn. But I will not, because we are not like you. We do not kill innocents for pleasure. We do not attack the helpless for sport. But hear me now, and hear me well. If any Varak ship ever enters human space again, there will be no mercy. If any Varak weapon is ever raised against a human, there will be no forgiveness. Your empire is over. Your military is destroyed. You will never threaten another species again." The transmission ended. Jin looked at Captain Mina, who had joined him on the flagship. "Some will say we should have destroyed them completely," she said. "Let them say it," Jin replied. "We are not monsters. We wanted them to stop attacking us, and they will. That is enough." But the galaxy was not done with humanity. The news of the Varak defeat spread like fire. Within days, every species in the Council had heard what happened. The humans, the soft creatures from the outer spiral arm, had destroyed one of the strongest military forces in known space. And they had done it easily. Fear spread faster than the news. The Mantari, a species of insect-like beings, immediately closed their borders to human ships. The crystals, the same beings who had mocked humanity at the Council, sent a message of friendship. The shadows, ancient creatures who had not spoken to anyone in 1,000 years, broke their silence to ask what humanity wanted. What humanity wanted was simple: respect. On Earth, Ambassador Yuna received delegations from 40 different species. They came with gifts. They came with treaties. They came with fear in their eyes. Una was very old now, over 130 years. Her body was weak, but her mind was sharp. She received each delegation in the same room where she had trained young diplomats for decades. "You want peace," she said to a delegation from the crystal beings. 60 years ago, your representative told me that human art was meaningless, that human science was primitive, that we would die before we ever mattered. Do you remember? The crystal diplomat shook nervously. That was a different time. We did not understand. You understood perfectly, Una replied. You saw a young species, and you decided to crush our hope before it could grow. You laughed at us. All of you laughed. We were wrong. Yes, you were. Una leaned back in her chair. We will accept your treaty. We are not vindictive. But remember this. We never forgot your laughter. We never forgot your words. Everything we built, every ship, every weapon, we built because of what you did that day. Think about that the next time you meet a young species asking for help. The treaties were signed. Peace was established. But everyone knew it was a different kind of peace. It was not the peace of equals. It was the peace of fear. Across the galaxy, species that had ignored humanity for decades now watched every move they made. Human ships were tracked wherever they went. Human words were analyzed for hidden meanings. Human actions were studied and discussed. The council called an emergency meeting. For the first time in 1,000 years, they invited a species to join without making the mask. They invited humanity. Commander Jin received the invitation on his ship. He read it once, then handed it to Captain Mina. What do you think? He asked Mina read the message. They want us to come to the council. As members. They want us where they can watch us, Jin corrected. They are afraid of what we might do next. What will we do next? Jin looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, a dozen human colonies were growing. Factories were building more ships. Scientists were creating new weapons. The fleet that had destroyed the Vorak was just the beginning. We will accept their invitation, Jin said. We will join their council. We will sit in their chambers and listen to their debates. And we will show them what we have become. And then, Jin smiled. It was a cold smile, one that held no warmth. And then we will make sure they never forget it. The human delegation was prepared. The ships were made ready. And across the galaxy, every species waited to see what would happen next. The age of humanity had begun. Part 3. The invasion of the colony was called New Dawn. It was humanity's newest world, a green planet with blue oceans and white clouds. 40,000 humans lived there. Farmers, teachers, children, families, who had come to build new lives far from the crowded cities of Earth. They had no warning. The Vorak fleet came out of darkness. 50 warships, each one massive and covered in weapons. The Vorak were a warrior species, tall and strong with gray skin and red eyes. They had been part of the council for 3,000 years. They took what they wanted, and no one stopped them. The colony's defense station detected the fleet too late. By the time the alarm sounded, Vorak fighters were already entering the atmosphere. In the main settlement, a woman named Sue grabbed her 2 children and ran. Explosions filled the sky. Buildings burned. People screamed. Vorak soldiers landed in the streets and began killing everyone they saw. Mommy! Her daughter cried. What is happening? Keep running, Sue said. Her voice was calm, but her heart was breaking. Do not look back. Just run. They reached the emergency shelter at the edge of town. Other survivors were there, maybe 200 people. The shelter was built to withstand attacks, but Sue knew it would not hold for long against Vorak weapons. An old man stood at the communication console. His hands were shaking, as he sent a message. "This is New Dawn Colony. We are under attack. Varrock forces. Please send help. Please." The message went out into space. Then they waited down on Earth. Commander Jin received the distress call. He was 45 years old, tall and thin, with a face that rarely showed emotion. He had trained his entire life for war, but he had never fought one. No human had. Not yet. He stood in the command center of the Iron Will, humanity's flagship. Around him, officers worked at their stations. Screens showed maps of human space. One screen showed a red dot, New Dawn. "How long until the Varrock finish?" Jin asked. "At their current rate," an officer replied, 12 hours. "Maybe less." Jin looked at the map. New Dawn was far from Earth. With normal engines, it would take 6 days to reach. By then, everyone would be dead. But humanity did not have normal engines. "Activate the fleet," Jin said. "All ships. Maximum speed. We jump in 1 hour." The officer's eyes widened. "Commander, if we reveal our new engines, the Council will know what we can do." "I know," Jin replied. "But those are our people dying. We do not leave our people behind." 1 hour later, 300 human warships activated their engines. Space bent around them. Light twisted. And then they were gone, moving faster than anything the galaxy had ever seen. On New Dawn, the shelter door was beginning to break. Varrock soldiers hammered at it with heavy weapons. Inside, the survivors held each other. Children cried. Adults prayed. Sue held her son and daughter close and told them stories about Earth, about the blue sky and the green trees and the ocean that went on forever. The door broke. Varrock soldiers poured in, weapons raised. Their leader, a massive creature with scars across his face, stepped forward. He looked at the humans with contempt. "Weak creatures," he said. "The Council was right to reject you. You are nothing but prey." He raised his weapon. Sue closed her eyes. Then the sky exploded. The Varrock leader looked up. Through the broken ceiling, he could see fire. Not the fire of his own ships. Something else. Something impossible. Human warships filled the sky. They had appeared from nowhere, moving faster than sensors could track. And they were destroying everything. The Varrock flagship lasted 4 seconds. The human weapons cut through its shields like they were not there. The ship broke apart and fell toward the planet in burning pieces. The Varrock fighters tried to escape. Human ships hunted them down. Every single one was destroyed. In orbit. The remaining Varrock warships tried to form a defensive line. Commander Jin watched them on his screen. "They still do not understand," he said quietly. "They still think they can fight us. Orders, Commander?" An officer asked. "Destroy them all." The battle lasted 3 hours. It was not really a battle. It was an execution. Human weapons tore through Varrock ships. Human shields stopped every attack. When the Varrock tried to run, human ships chased them. When the Varrock tried to surrender, their messages were ignored. Not a single Varrock ship survived. On the surface of New Dawn, Sue opened her eyes. The Varrock soldiers were gone. Human soldiers in black armor stood in their place. One of them removed his helmet. He was young, maybe 25, with kind eyes. "Are you hurt?" he asked. Sue could not speak. Tears ran down her face. Her children clung to her, shaking. The soldier knelt down to look at the children. "It is okay now," he said gently. "You are safe. The monsters are gone." Commander Jin landed on the planet an hour later. He walked through the ruins of the colony, looking at the bodies. Humans and Varrock lay together in the dirt. He counted the dead. 4,000 colonists had been killed before help arrived. 4,000. Jin had known war would come. He had trained for it. He had prepared for it. But seeing the bodies made something change inside him. The anger that all humans carried, the anger that had burned for 50 years, became something else. Something colder. Something harder. An officer approached him. "Commander, we have captured the Varak communication records. They show that this attack was approved by the Council. The Varak asked permission to take human colonies as slave worlds." The Council said yes. Jin was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "Send a message to Earth. Tell them what happened here. Tell them the Council approved this attack. Tell them we are done hiding. And the Varak homeworld?" Jin looked up at the sky. Somewhere out there, billions of Varak lived on their home planet. They had families, children, lives. They probably did not even know about the attack on New Dawn. They were innocent, but so were the 4,000 dead humans at his feet. "We go to their homeworld," Jin said. "We show them what happens when you attack humanity. We show the entire galaxy." The human fleet gathered in orbit around New Dawn. 300 ships, armed with weapons no other species had. They pointed toward Varak Space. Commander Jin stood on the bridge of the Iron Will. Behind him, his crew waited in silence. They all knew what was coming. They all knew what it meant. The war had begun, and humanity would not stop until the galaxy learned to fear them. "All ships," Jin said. "Move out." The fleet jumped into the darkness. The stars blurred and twisted. And somewhere in the galaxy, a species called the Varak was about to learn the price of attacking humanity. Part 1. The dismissal. The ship was called the Hope of Earth. It was humanity's first vessel capable of traveling between stars. Admiral Tay stood at the front window and watched as they moved closer to the massive space station. The Galactic Council station was bigger than anything humans had ever built. It was a ring of metal and light that floated in the darkness of space. Ships from 100 different worlds came and went like insects around a lamp. Tay was 60 years old. His hair was gray, and his face showed the lines of many hard years. He had spent his entire life working toward this moment. Behind him stood Ambassador Yuna. She was younger, maybe 40, with sharp eyes and a calm voice. She held a folder of documents against her chest. These papers contained everything humanity wanted to offer the galaxy. "It is beautiful," Yuna said quietly. "It is," Tay agreed. "I hope they think the same of us." The Hope of Earth was small compared to the other ships. It looked like a toy next to the massive cruisers of the older species. But Tay was proud of it. Humans had built it with their own hands, their own minds, their own dreams. A voice came through the communication system. It was cold and flat. "Human vessel, you are cleared to dock at Platform 12. Do not deviate from your assigned path. Do not speak to other vessels. Proceed directly to the waiting area." Tay looked at Yuna. She said nothing, but he could see the worry in her eyes. The docking was smooth. When the doors opened, a group of alien guards waited for them. They were tall creatures with 4 arms and skin like blue stone. They did not greet the humans. They simply pointed toward a long hallway. "Follow," one of them said. Tay walked with Yuna and their small team of advisors. The hallway was wide and filled with beings from many worlds. Some had scales. Some had fur. Some floated in the air without legs. All of them stopped to look at the humans. Tay heard whispers. He did not understand the languages, but he understood the tone. It was mockery. One creature, a thing with too many eyes and a mouth full of teeth, stepped in front of them. It leaned down and sniffed at Yuna. "Soft," it said in broken common tongue. "Very soft. Very weak." Yuna did not move. She met the creature's many eyes and said nothing. After a moment, it laughed and walked away. They were taken to a small room and told to wait. The room had no windows. The chairs were too big for human bodies. They sat in silence for 3 hours. Finally, a door opened. A thin alien with silver skin entered. "The council will see you now," it said. "You have 10 minutes. 10 minutes." Humanity had traveled for 2 years across the stars. They had spent 50 years building the technology to make the journey. And they were given 10 minutes. The council chamber was round and vast. Hundreds of seats rose up in circles around a central platform. Every seat was filled with representatives from different species. At the top sat the 5 elder races. They were the oldest and most powerful beings in the galaxy. They had ruled the council for 10,000 years. Tay and Yuna walked to the center platform. The lights were bright and hot. Every eye in the room was on them. The chief elder was a creature of light and shadow. It had no solid form. When it spoke, the voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "You are the humans," it said. It was not a question. "We are," Tay replied. His voice was steady. "We come from Earth, in the outer spiral arm. We have traveled far to meet you. We wish to join the Galactic Council as equal members." Silence. Then, slowly, laughter began. It started with one species, then spread to another, then another. Soon the entire chamber was filled with the sound of alien laughter. Tay felt his face grow hot. Beside him, Yuna's hands tightened around her folder. The chief elder raised what might have been a hand. The laughter stopped. "Equal members," it repeated. "You are a young species. You have only just learned to leave your planet. You have no fleet. You have no weapons. You have nothing to offer this council. We have knowledge," Yuna said, stepping forward. "We have art. We have science. You have nothing," another elder interrupted. This one was made of crystal and spoke in a voice like breaking glass. "Your science is primitive. Your art is meaningless. Your species is weak and short-lived. You die after only 100 years. What wisdom can such creatures offer?" Tay took a breath. "We learn quickly. We adapt. Enough." The chief elder's voice cut through the air. "The council has already decided. Humanity is denied membership. You may use the outer trade routes. You may not enter council space. You may not contact council species. Return to your world, human. Perhaps in 1,000 years, your descendants may try again." The laughter returned. This time, it was louder. Some of the aliens stood and pointed at the humans. Others made gestures that clearly meant insult. Tay looked at Yuna. Her face was pale, but her eyes burned with something he had never seen before. It was not sadness. It was not shame. It was anger. "Come," she said quietly. "We are done here." They walked out of the chamber. The laughter followed them. It echoed through the halls as they made their way back to their ship. It rang in their ears as they undocked from the station. It stayed with them as they began the long journey home. On the bridge of the Hope of Earth, Tay sat in his chair and stared at the stars. Yuna stood beside him. "What do we do now?" he asked. Yuna was silent for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was cold and hard. "We remember," she said. "We remember every laugh, every insult, every moment of today. And then we build. We build ships. We build weapons. We build an empire so powerful that they will never laugh at us again." Tay looked at her. In her eyes, he saw the future of humanity. It was not a future of peace and friendship. It was a future of fire and steel. "How long?" he asked. "As long as it takes," she replied. 10 years. 50 years. 100 years. It does not matter. One day, we will return to that chamber. And on that day, they will not laugh. They will bow. The Hope of Earth turned toward home. Behind them, The Galactic Council Station grew smaller and smaller until it was just another point of light among billions. The galaxy had made its choice. It had chosen to ignore humanity. It was a mistake they would never forget. Part 2. The Silent Years. 50 years passed. To the galaxy, it was nothing. The elder races had lived for millions of years. 50 years was like a single breath to them. They forgot about the small, soft creatures from the outer spiral arm. Humanity became a joke, a story that older species told to younger ones. Do not be too proud, they would say. Even the humans once thought they were special. But on Earth, 50 years was everything. General Hyan stood on the observation deck of the orbital shipyard and watched the workers below. He was 73 years old now, but his body was strong. Medical science had improved. Humans lived longer now. They healed faster. They grew stronger. Below him, the skeleton of a new warship was taking shape. It was called the Iron Will, and it was the largest vessel humanity had ever built. But it was not alone. Around it, dozens of other ships were being constructed. Destroyers, cruisers, carriers. An entire fleet was being born in the darkness above Earth. A young officer approached him. General Hyan, Dr. Hana is ready for you in the weapons lab. Hyan nodded and turned away from the window. He walked through the station's long corridors until he reached a heavy metal door. 2 guards stood on either side. They saluted as he approached. The door opened, and Hyan stepped inside. The weapons lab was a massive room filled with machines and screens. Scientists in white coats moved between workstations, their faces lit by the glow of data. At the center of it all stood Dr. Hana. She was 60 years old, but she looked younger. Her hair was still black, and her eyes were sharp and bright. She had dedicated her entire life to one goal, making sure humanity would never be weak again. General, she said, smiling slightly. Come, I want to show you something. She led him to a large metal table. On it sat a weapon. It looked simple, almost like an old rifle. But Hyan knew better. Nothing Hannah created was simple. This is the Model 7, she said. It fires a beam of compressed energy that can cut through any known material in the galaxy. The shields used by council ships? Useless against it. Their armor? Paper. Hyan picked up the weapon. It was light in his hands. How did you do it? Hannah smiled. The council thought we were primitive because we were young. But being young means we have no limits. We do not believe something is impossible just because it has never been done. We asked questions that older species stopped asking thousands of years ago. She walked to another table. On it was a small black box. This is even more important. It is a new type of engine. It will allow our ships to travel 3 times faster than anything the Council has. They will not see us coming. They will not be able to run. Hyan set down the weapon and looked at Hana. You have done incredible work. I have done necessary work, she replied. Do you remember what Ambassador Yuna said when she returned from the Council? She said we must never forget. I have not forgotten, General. Not for a single day. Hyan nodded slowly. He remembered. Everyone remembered. The recording of that day had been shown to every human child for 50 years. The laughter, the insults, the dismissal. It was burned into humanity's collective memory. How many ships do we have now? Hannah asked. 300 warships, Hyan replied. 2,000 support vessels. And more being built every day. In 10 more years, we will have the largest fleet in the galaxy. And the colonies? 12 planets. All in the outer regions where the Council does not look. 20 million humans living beyond Earth. Factories, farms, training centers. Everything we need. Hana was quiet for a moment. Then she said, the Council still ignores us. Yes, Good. Let them ignore us. Let them think we are still the soft, weak creatures who came begging for membership. When we are ready, we will show them the truth. Hyan thought about the years ahead. He was an old man now. He might not live to see the day when humanity returned to the council. But that did not matter. What mattered was that the work continued. I received a message from Admiral Tay, he said. Hannah's expression softened. Tay was very old now, over 100 years. He rarely left Earth anymore. But his mind was still sharp, and his hatred for the council still burned bright. What did he say? He said he wants to see the fleet before he dies. He wants to know that his grandchildren will live in a galaxy that respects humanity. Then, we must make sure they do, Hana said. Outside the station, the shipyard continued its work. Sparks flew as metal was welded together. Machines hummed as weapons were tested. Voices echoed as orders were given. Day and night, the work never stopped. On Earth, young men and women trained for war. They learned to fight. They learned to fly. They learned to kill. They were told about the council. They were told about the council. They were told about the day of shame. And they were told about the day of reckoning that would come. In secret bases across human space, scientists developed new technologies. Shields that could stop any weapon. Sensors that could detect ships from across a solar system. Medical treatments that could heal wounds in minutes. Armor that made soldiers almost impossible to kill. The galaxy did not notice. The council was busy with its own politics. The elder races argued with each other over trade routes and territory. The younger species fought small wars over resources. No one paid attention to the quiet corner of space where humanity lived. That was exactly what humanity wanted. General Hyan returned to his office and sat at his desk. On the wall hung a picture. It showed the council chamber on the day of rejection. Yuna had taken it secretly before they left. In the picture, the aliens were laughing. Their mouths were open. Their bodies were shaking with amusement. Hyan looked at that picture every day. It reminded him why he worked so hard. It reminded him why sleep did not matter. It reminded him why nothing mattered except preparing for the future. His communication screen lit up. A message from one of the colony worlds. General, the third training academy has opened. We now have 50,000 soldiers ready for deployment. Hyan typed his response. Good. Open a fourth academy. We need more. The years continued to pass. Admiral Tay died at the age of 112. His funeral was attended by millions. In his final message, recorded before his death, he said only one thing. Do not forget. Never forget. Yuna took his place as the leader of humanity's council. She was old now too, but her anger had not faded. If anything, it had grown stronger. General Hyan continued to build the fleet. Dr. Hannah continued to create weapons. And across human space, a new generation grew up knowing only one truth. The galaxy had rejected them. And one day, the galaxy would pay. The silent years were almost over. The day of reckoning was coming, and when it came, the council would learn what it meant to ignore humanity.